Hello, welcome to a Daniel L. Hightower. Welcome to a Daniel L. Hightower Wednesday on the Buddy Martin Show.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye!
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Hello, welcome. It's football time again. I can't believe we missed a day there, but we did. And I got to tell you, I make a confession tonight. As much as I love the game of college football, and I do love it, it's the greatest game. I got to a point last night at the end of the third quarter where I said, I'm just this far from being overloaded with football. Just right there, thinking, what's going to happen in this game? Can Georgia come back and win this game? And at that time, the score was like 23, 27. And I said, I don't think so. I've been watching football now for days, and I'm kind of football wearied out, and I think I'm going to take a shot here, and I'm going to call it a night. And I went to bed at the end of the third quarter, which proved to be a pretty good decision, as we know what happened to the Mighty Bulldogs. It did not go well for them. And so I raised the question, was it me? Was it just feeling something going on with Georgia? It wasn't a very pretty sight. Or was I getting football overload? I didn't think it was possible, but I was weary, and I watched football as much as I could. Watched most of it the last 3 weeks. And satisfied that I saw what I needed to see. And tonight on the program, we're going to get some input from you, because think about this. If you heard the news today, Florida has suddenly 3 more players declaring for the NFL. If you haven't heard, Voshan Joseph, of course, being one. Jordan Scarlett, a little bit of a surprise, but if you're going to take a hit someplace, that's a pretty good place to take it, where you're loaded at running back right now. That is, if nobody else takes off. And, of course, we also know that Polite and Jawan Taylor. So they're starting to lose some players now. That these are the little nuances of things that do happen, and that the game can change. The season can change. Look at Georgia, how good things were going for Georgia. And then after that loss in the SEC championship game, you kind of knew. I don't want to use the word flat, but yeah, they were flat. They were flat. So in just a moment, we're going to deconstruct this season for Florida. I asked you earlier to weigh in on some issues of what are some of the things that were game changers. A play or a player or a decision. And I talk about this. You heard me say it many times. The day that Dan Mullen got off that plane at Gainesville Airport, chomping, happy, it changed the tenor of everything around Gainesville and the football program. And it proved out to be that. And you wonder if what happened to Michigan was a result of things going the other way. So I've asked you to just tonight weigh in and give me your thoughts on those. And I'll say good evening to Jake Allen Lamb. How you doing? Haven't talked to you in a while. David Soderquist. Already good to talk to you, buddy. Also, Donald Wilder. Yes, stay loyal to the kingdom. There it is right there. Stay loyal. And it was, I'd say yesterday was when it all started. The official start date is the 28th. We've got some things we're going to be talking about a lot the next couple of weeks. Some changes we're looking at. some help we need from you, some decisions to be made. You need to help us make them. We've been doing this a while, and it's kind of become regular routine of things. Like someone said today, how's it going to be now tomorrow when there's no football? And to think you don't have something after having it, well, or you have less of it, you begin to look at things and say, wow, is that a change I want to see happen? Well, whatever we do, we're all in this together. So in just a moment, we'll get our takes from people like Chris Doering and then Terry Norvelle. Say, okay, what were the changes and what are your top 10 right now minus the top 2? It's not that easy. I went over it 3 times today, and I still keep changing my mind. So I'll say good evening to Nat Blaylock. How are you, the mayor of Newberry, just back from up in Atlanta, GA. Andy, how are you, my friend down there? Andy Pham from Mississippi Gulf Coast. Go Gators. Lynn Tyndall, always there, my man. He's as regular as clockwork. Ramon Bernhard. David Baldoff. Brendan was here earlier today. He'll be back. He did a couple promos if you saw him. And Brendan was planning to try to make more appearances on the show if he can find a day job or a way to get paid for doing this. That's one of the things we're working on. No, you ain't chopped liver. And I think he's referring to being snubbed by his buddy Lynn. Robert Dodson, good evening, Dilly Dilly. Roger Burns, all the way over there in China. Roger's great to hear from you. Michael Matthews, Dilly Dilly to you. A little more conversation there about meat. What am I? Chris Howe, Happy New Year to you. Alexander, always good to have you, Alexander Perez. Bill Nero, I don't know that I've remembered talking to you recently, or if I have met you. Keith Willard, yeah, Bevo was a little tired of Uga as well, right? Who are we rooting for in that fight, I can tell you. Lynn says, my only surprise so far was Voshan Joseph. Yeah, that was a bit of that. Had been rumored earlier. It looked like it had calmed down. So I was a little surprised by, I'm with you, David. I was surprised by Scarlett. I thought he did change his mind on that. And then Becky Smith, good evening to you. Paula, good evening to you. Jay, good evening to you. Etc. Sissy. All you folks out there. Thanks for checking in. I appreciate it very much. We're going to see if we can whip out here and talk to our friends. So good evening to Scott. And to go get in touch with Chris Doering, the great one. Yeah, if Chris Doering ever had a book, it would be From Walk On to Walk Off, right? Would that be a good title? What do you think? Walk on to walk off. Doering got a touchdown. Doering got a touchdown. Yep, that'd be a good one. Let's see what he's up to and get a hold of our buddy up there in Gainesville. He should be back from the office, and we'll see what he's got to offer up today.
Hello.
Is this the lanky one? The new guy, the word man, who now graces us with his knowledge on big time shows and slums on this one sometimes. How are you, Chris?
I'm good. Good to be back with you, buddy.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you just simply, how was it? I didn't get a chance to watch too much of your show, just to hear a little here and there. There's so much going on, I couldn't get it all in, Chris.
Yeah, busy weekend. I felt like between Friday, Saturday, New Year's Eve, and New Year's Day, it was almost like we had 4 different Saturdays of college football, right? I mean, tons of games going on, particularly in the SEC yesterday. So it was a lot to digest, but shows went well. Had a chance to do that goal line show with Peter Burns and DJ Shockley and Tori Gurley, and covered our game and covered the South Carolina game, very opposite ends of the spectrum for 2 SEC teams. So I had some fun with that. And then a couple shows New Year's Eve and last night, the late one after Georgia. Didn't get out of there until about 1 o'clock.
I didn't make
it. Late night.
I did not make it. I just confessed that I finally made a call at the end of the third quarter and thought, I've seen a lot of football, and I think I can do without the fourth quarter when I'm pretty sure I know what's going to happen. And I took a shot, and I went to bed.
Well, if you watch the first half, it was much of the same in the second half. I think that's the thing that surprised me the most was not the mindset of Georgia maybe not being the way you would have liked it to have been, but the physical beatdown that they took on the lines of scrimmage. I thought Texas's defense did a great job of penetrating all night long, never let that running game get anything going. An offensive line that's one of the best in the SEC just didn't match up very well on this night, at least, with Texas. And if Tom Herman's building a team that can play some defense in that conference, man, they got a chance to be really good going forward.
For sure. And, and you saw some things that the flaws come out, eventually. The freshmen who made the mistake, the drop passes, the interceptions, the fumbles, the Andre Swift, my goodness. And it looked like a team that was mentally perhaps fatigued and had a hangover from the SEC championship game.
Which is surprising to me because, I think that we've come to expect Georgia to be much like Alabama is now. But I think if you look back, there were some occasions where Alabama, remember when they missed out on going to the SEC championship game, or ended up going not going to the national title game and ended up in the Sugar Bowl where they laid an egg. So I think it's part of the maturation of any program. While the acceleration of Georgia's ascent was probably a little quicker than maybe a lot would have expected or a lot are able to accomplish, I think it still has a ways to go, and that was a little growth opportunity for them last night.
Yeah, that's for sure. And the reminder that things do change unexpectedly, and by the way, they're not Alabama. They are Georgia, and Kirby Smart is not Nick Saban. Just a reminder. And to remind you that you can't take anything for granted. Look at what happened today to Florida with the early outs that we had.
It's kind of surprising.
Yeah. So things change.
It does, and I think things are changing more rapidly than we've ever seen them before in college football, with guys sitting out now, the bowl games, many more guys electing to go pro earlier. It's sad for me, but as you know, I valued my time at the University of Florida probably more than even in the NFL. It was more of a dream for me to play for the Gators than it was to play in the NFL. And while I was blessed to do both, I think that what I accomplished at Florida was probably more special for me. And so I think, unfortunately, today, college in general has become, a stopping point, a little a jump off to get to the NFL for so many of these guys, that they don't really value, what the experience at the college level means, and kind of try to rush through it maybe faster than what we did when I was in school.
Good point. And by the way, I think you come to value the years like that Florida had this year. You played the game, you can't count on things being like you expect him to. Yeah. And fortunately for Dan Mullen, he was able to correct that in mid-course, and we're going to talk about that tonight, about the things that you think were the big difference makers over the period of the season, deconstruct the timeline a little bit, and then we'll get your top 8 of your top 10 and see where you stand right now. And I found
real quick, before we move on, buddy, I think you make a good point, because even in order to create continuity this day and age, you got to create a culture, and you got to be able to recruit and reload. So I think of Alabama as being a team that's done that. Everybody understands the culture of that program, and they've accumulated such talent that when guys move on, the other guys step up and move in, and you don't miss too much of a beat. But even Alabama has shown that they're not immune to it. I thought Kirk Herbstreit made a good point the other night. He started to make a point during the game against Oklahoma about how you don't typically see a lot of these mistakes that Alabama were making, whether it was a formation being lined up incorrectly that called back that Irv Smith touchdown, or you saw all those mistakes in a row right before halftime. You saw Raekwon Davis rip his helmet off in frustration. These are things that we have not known Alabama to do typically, and I think that's just a little sign that nobody's immune from culture issues creeping up from time to time.
Absolutely. And now now we got no Mel Tucker, which is to change some things there, and Kirby maybe got a little too much too quickly. I mean, and one lesson that I want to say here, and I know this sounds like it's monotonous, but it's true, is that you just can't count, and you're a living example of this, on 4 stars and 5 stars making you a great team. The coaching part of that is so underrated. And I like my friend Lynn, our chief knight here of the Gator Nation Kingdom, says this all the time. Florida has had a three-star players and a five-star coach. And Kirby's the other way around. And now Nick Saban's bona fide in both departments. To do what he's done, look, that is so hard. I mean, I've heard Terry Bradshaw tell me a number of times how hard it is to keep winning. The pressures of when you won 2 Super Bowls. And, oh, my gosh, am I going to lose it this time? You played the game, right? You know how bitter that loss was in the Fiesta Bowl after having a great team, as good a team as Florida has ever had. Look at the record, and you go in there to a buzzsaw. You happen to catch one of the 2 or 3 greatest football teams of all time on their game. I mean, that must have felt like a punch in the stomach.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's, I look back at my career, my time in Florida, it couldn't have been more of a storybook from start to just about finish, with the exception of the way things wrapped up in the Fiesta Bowl. But, I do think it's important that you learn from experiences and you learn from mistakes, and that's exactly what Florida did the year after I left, when they went back and kind of retooled some of what they did. And Coach Spurrier, even after the loss to FSU that year, deciding to go with the shotgun. I mean, that's what, to me, coaching's all about. It's about taking these things that are negatives and turning them into positives, and being able to teach. Coaches are nothing more than teachers. And I think Dan Mullen and his staff are really good teachers. And I look at, that Nick Saban, really good teacher. I think Kirby Smart's a really good hands-on teacher. So that even more so now than ever before. Remember the days where head coaches would sit up in towers and look down and let everybody coach? Nowadays, as a head coach, you got to be involved. I mean, I think the best coaches are out there teaching on a daily basis and really touching their team and making sure that they're connected in a way that former older coaches in different generations didn't have to do.
Good point, Chris Doering. And I remember after the game going out looking for Spurrier, because you don't usually see him after a game. And I found out he was on the bus. He and Jerry were sitting in the front seat. And I've been around sports all my life. I know what it's like for coaches to go through losing. I understand you can't feel too sorry for them, and they don't want sympathy. But I got to tell you, that night when I got on that bus just to say hello or goodbye to Jerry and Steve and what, he was heartbroken, and I felt terrible for him that night. And you were on that bus, so I can imagine what that was like. So that was one of those painful losses. But as you point out, what happened next year? That's the beauty about there's always tomorrow. Not always, but you sometimes have tomorrow, right?
Yeah, nothing's guaranteed, but I do think that there's that. The growth of our program when I was there in the 90s was about experiences, failures, and learning from those failures, whether it was going to the Sugar Bowl in 91 and not knowing how to handle the situation there when we played Notre Dame and getting beat, and then coming back and doing much better when we played West Virginia 2 years later, or whether it was that first experience in the SEC title game in 92, losing on the Antonio Langham interception, and then coming back and winning the next 4, or losing in the national title game and coming back the next year and winning it 96. I think that's the thing that is important to do is to learn from those experiences and be better because of it. And I think that's what's so amazing about the transformation of this year's team from last year, is that there were so many negatives and really not a lot to build on with a fresh new staff, but the buy-in of the players immediately, how quickly they listened to this coaching staff and got on board is a testament to the players and a testament to the coach for their authenticity and how they were able to connect with guys that they didn't really recruit to this program. And so you saw some of the players afterwards speaking to their gratitude to Dan Mullen and to the staff for what they taught them and what they were able to accomplish together, which is pretty impressive.
And some of them are leaving, we're raving about it. So I can tell you how much that attitude, as a matter of fact, leads us right into the segment of that attitude he had when he got to the airport and got off that plane chomping. That started the whole mental change, the whole outlook, the whole positivity. And you and I had a lot of conversations over the past 18 months, and sometimes you probably thought I was pumping sunshine. And you were not really to buy in, and I can understand that. I was a little too optimistic probably. but but I felt it. I felt at least for a while there, and then of course it started going south. There's something going on there with this team. I can't put my finger.
We talked about it. The ironic part was that I was on the show with you on that Sunday when the news broke about Dan Mullen being named the head coach.
Right.
While I thought it made a lot of sense, I don't know that I was necessarily blown away by it. But as soon as I saw him step off of that plane, chomping, and when I saw him, I was at the introductory press conference and saw the energy with which he had at the stand there, how excited he was to be back as the University of Florida head coach, the tip of the cap to Coach Spurrier, and what those before him had created there. I mean, it really connected with me, and I think it did the same thing for so many other Gator fans that were thirsting for some sign of life in this program.
Well, when you've been down so long, and you feel like you're around so much negative energy, to be around somebody that's got positive energy and makes you feel good about things at a time where people are wringing their hands and saying, we got no players, we got terrible recruiting, our cupboard is empty, Michael Wayne is ruining this thing, and so and so and so. So, yeah, I mean, that changes. So let's get into the issue. First thing, we'll agree the most positive thing originally had to be Mullen and his press conference and arriving at the airport. Now, give me a couple of things as you look down and do the deconstruction of that year, other key points where you feel differences were made in decisions that helped transform the year.
Well, I mean, I think just as we talked about earlier, negative things sometimes can end up being positive things. I think losing to Kentucky probably was a positive thing. I thought after that Kentucky loss, and I believe it was the following week against Colorado State, the offensive line looked terrible.
Yeah.
The offense was inconsistent at best. I thought we were in for a long season. I kind of reorganized my thought of what this team was going to be like. I predicted 8-4 in the preseason. After watching those two games, I would think Florida would be lucky to get to a bowl game. But what they do, they learn from those experiences. I thought they had, from a positive standpoint, that game, the Tennessee game was basically a gift from the Vols. I mean, they couldn't have put themselves in a worse situation early in that game. But credit Florida for taking advantage and putting the pressure on Tennessee to force those turnovers. But the real win for me, I think that indicated that there was some great coaching things taking place was that game in Starkville, and the way that I thought it was going to be a huge mismatch between Florida's offensive line and Mississippi State's defensive line. And what they do, they negated that mismatch by utilizing a lot of the quick screen passes to the receivers, almost like long handoffs outside, forcing those D linemen to have to chase sideline to sideline. Those guys ended up getting worn out. They weren't able to rush the passer like they like to do. And at the end of the game, Florida actually lined up and ran the football right at them with some success. So I thought that was a tremendous coaching job that really signaled to me that one, he was in touch with the strengths and weaknesses of his team. Two, he wasn't going to try to do things his way just to do it that way. He was going to try to put his players in a position to be successful, to win. And three, that the players were buying in and trusting what he was doing from the game planning side of things.
Yes, those are all good points. I think Nick Savage was as big a factor of anything that was not a player or coach for sure.
Sure.
And look at the end of the season, how it wound up. Players were in good shape.
Yeah. Injuries
were down, and their durability was. They were strong in the end when they needed to be. They stood up against Michigan and when they had to, and that was such a huge part of the success of Dan Mullen's first year.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a key for so many different reasons. One, the time that the strength and conditioning staff spends with the players in the off season is greater than what the head coach and assistants get a chance to. I mean, those are the guys that set the tone. Those are the guys that handle disciplinary issues in the off season. So there's a lot that goes into the dynamic of being a great strength and conditioning coordinator. And I think Nick Savage's age, while some people may have been skeptical originally about is he the right guy, does he have enough experience, Dan Mullen, it was 100% sold on him being the right guy. And I think with his age and youthfulness, he had the ability to connect with those guys in a way that, maybe some older strength and conditioning coaches wouldn't have the same success with.
Yeah, no question about that. That was definitely one of the factors. Now, a couple other things. The injury to Marco Wilson turned out to be to be a blessing. Because look at the experience those young defensive backs got.
I don't know. Let's don't call it a blessing. I say they make the best of it because, I mean, where we think about going into the season, how thin Florida was in the secondary, and they couldn't afford to have injuries, and you lose. I think Marco Wilson's the best secondary player that Florida has. Hopefully he'll come back and play at that same level next year. But you're right. I mean, Trading getting the opportunity to play as extensively as he had an opportunity to do. I still believe he'll probably end up playing safety next year. But, I mean, a guy that has the versatility to play corner or safety, I imagine he could probably play nickel as well. That cross-training gives you depth that you may not otherwise have. So getting a chance for him to play significant snaps is really important going forward. They made the best of what was a bad situation.
Yeah, I didn't mean it's a blessing then. It's a blessing now, though.
Sure.
Because of the experience that you got. And, of course, it's not a blessing when you lose your best defensive back like that. But, no, you're right. It turns out that be. Now, how do you size up Felipe Frank's situation?
Yeah, here's the thing. I tweeted something out the other day about my thoughts on Felipe. And I think what I wanted to accomplish, one, I think I had been, not that I was critical of him, but I was critical of, the overall limitations of the offense with him as the quarterback. And, I guess the guy's got 9 lives because how many times did we see where he was ready to get benched last year for Luke Del Rio, only to have Luke get hurt in Vandy early in that game? You think about Trask not being available late in the season, or else he would have gotten a chance this year with Trask going down with an injury and not being around. I mean, just so many different things led Felipe to continue to have opportunities. And I think you asked about some of the turning points. I think that Missouri game, the homecoming loss, embarrassing loss at home, was a turning point for Florida. Worst defeat this season. But I think it also retooled what Florida was doing offensively. They started utilizing Felipe in the run game a lot more, and I think surprisingly, he went from being a willing runner, as we heard Dan Mullen talk about, to a guy that is really actually pretty good at running the football. So, I think they changed what they did offensively, and that helped in the last month of the season. But I like the fact that, one, clearly he cares about being the quarterback at Florida. He played with a chip on his shoulder to the point where, I've never seen anybody hush their own fans, but he did that in the South Carolina game.
That's right.
And whatever it takes to, Baker Mayfield's a guy that creates issues to try to motivate himself in a lot of cases. And I think Felipe is kind of a guy that feeds off that as well. The other thing I see from him is a guy that seems to buy in and wants to work to try to get better. And he's only a sophomore. You can almost consider this to be his first season because I don't know that he got the teaching and development that he needed in his first 2 seasons here in Gainesville. So I don't know if he's the long-term solution. I don't know if he'll even have a chance to be the starter next year. But I do know that he did a lot to help this program in a year of transition. And I think, Gator fans should thank him for the effort and for the amount of care and commitment that he has.
They're going to have to drive a stake through his heart to get him out of there. I can tell you that right now. He's not going to go. They've been trying to knock him out for 2 years, and my hat's off to the young man. So one more, and then we'll do our top 10. The stretch they had when they went 6-1 was amazing, and it looked like then they were striking just some great stuff. And then things began to fall apart. And as you know, a season has several ebbs and flows. Then after the Missouri loss, it looked like, I don't know, so they might not win a game they were playing this game. It looked terrible. And then to finish strong like they did with 4 wins and 41 points in each one, average each game, and and to bring that offense back, and you look back and say, wow, that offense was pretty darn good, and who was the quarterback? You keep saying, well, he won't start. Well, he won 10 games this year. Why wouldn't he start?
I think it's interesting too. Again, we go back and we point to a couple low points in the season, but those low points actually were great learning opportunities. The Kentucky loss, the Missouri loss. I think clearly Missouri had a lot to do with the loss the week before to to Georgia. That was one that I think Florida was emotionally all in on, and once they lost that game, a game that they were close into the fourth quarter with one of the top teams in the country. So if that's not a litmus test for where they are and the ability to compete with the best in this conference, if not the country, I think that's a great point for Florida. But at the same time, they didn't show up the next week. And as we all know, you play in the SEC, it is a test every single week. And if you don't bring your mental game and focus, then you're not gonna just show up and roll the balls out there and win. So I thought that was a great opportunity for Dan Mullen to teach guys about the level of focus that it requires and being able to turn the page from the week before, whether you win or lose. Yeah. You got to be able to show up and have your A game. So I thought Florida did that last season. If they would have lost a game like that, they did. Shoot, they lost a game like that in Columbia, Missouri, and probably the low point of last year's season, and they were winning the complete tank. Now I know there were issues with the coach being let go and injuries and everything else, but I thought the resiliency of this team was where we saw a display of growth, mental growth, and what it takes to be a competitor in this conference.
Yeah. Hey, I might as well answer this now. You give me yours, and you knew it had to happen. I've been asked twice tonight about what's all this noise about Mullen going to the NFL. Well, first of all, I haven't heard that. I'm sure there's been on some message board. Number two, I can't see any way, shape, or form that Dan Mullen would have any interest in going to the NFL. Can you?
Well, let's talk about the allure of the NFL. It used to be a situation where if you wanted to make top dollar, you had to go to the NFL. Well, nowadays, with the salaries that are being paid in college football, guys can coach in college. Shoot, you can be an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and make millions of dollars in the college game. So I don't think there's the financial motivation to go to the next level like there used to be. Now, I do agree that a lot of guys probably get curious about their ability to test themselves at the highest level, but I don't think Dan Mullen's interested in that yet. I think he still has a lot to prove. I think he's at a place that he truly loves. The other thing I think that you look at is the way that the pro game has now become much more like the college game. It used to be an elitist attitude where, hey, those college concepts aren't going to work in the NFL. Well, nowadays you look at what the Chiefs are doing, the Rams are doing, all this innovation, and you're seeing many more college coaches that are being interviewed at that level. Shoot, Cliff Kingsbury was being interviewed in the NFL this week. So there's I can understand why people may rumor Dan Mullen to be a guy that could potentially go to the NFL, but I just don't see that being something that at least he's motivated to do at this point.
Well, and not only that, I'll be honest with you, look at the quality of coaches. They got 8 coaches, 9 coaches, and look at those and tell me how many of those coaches are really the kind of coaches you want to hire. Nothing wrong with them. They're serviceable coaches, but there's about 2 of them that would excite me. And the rest of them I think, like you said, Cliff Kingsbury? I mean, come on. If he's your head coach, I don't know. All right, let's do it. Let's do our top 10 or 8 of our top 10, okay? And we'll see.
Well, here's the deal. You texted me that earlier today. You say you want to bring your top 10. Yeah. And as I'm thinking about it throughout the day, I don't think the top 10, the end of the season top 10, is applicable anymore. I think because of the way the teams have changed so much in personnel by the time you get to the bowl games. I mean, these are nothing more than glorified NFL preseason games, and I hate to say it, but you saw it last night. Are you telling me that Georgia is not a good a team as what Texas is? Now, on that stage and that situation, clearly Texas beat them down last night.
Weren't. But that's the whole point. They weren't last night.
So you're going to tell me that would you rank Texas ahead of Georgia right now?
I'm not. I'm actually not ranking them that way. I'm ranking it based on how they played the whole season. Yeah, and they have to be.
How do you take a game like that? How do you take?
I didn't say it was easy. I've changed mine around about 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, well, you know what I like though. Let's talk about a positive that I like.
I do have Georgia ranked ahead of Texas, by the way, but that's
you got to. Yeah, I mean, obviously they're a better team.
I did last night first. I had them down at the bottom. I had them 8th, and I moved them back up based on the body of work. When you start seeing how many teams won that many games at the high level, not that many teams did.
It was a weird year. It was a weird year in college football. But let's talk about a couple of things that I think were really positive stories from the SEC. One, Kentucky. The way that they went about winning 10 games. Yesterday was a perfect microcosm of the entire season, right? They were disrespected. They were an underdog to Penn State. They went in there. It wasn't always pretty, but they found a way to win. And their 2 biggest stars, Josh Allen on defense and Benny Snell on offense, were the guys they leaned on. Snell with 8 straight carries at the end of that game to ice it away, and then Josh Allen able to get to the quarterback 3 times, something he'd done all year long.
Right.
I love the fact that Josh Allen played. I love that Devin White played. I love that Jeffrey Simmons played and Montez Sweat.
And did I hear that Josh Allen's coming back?
Josh Allen's a senior, isn't he?
Oh, I don't know. So I thought someone said last night. I said
no,
he's
Josh
going to
Allen's
be
a
a number
senior.
1 pick, but if somebody said he's coming back, I thought.
No, he came back for his senior year.
I think you're right.
Yeah. So, but I like that those guys showed up and played their last game with their teammates, even though there's a lot on the line and the money, the business aspect of it's changed. I really respected those guys playing, and they all seem to have really good finales in their last game with their teammates.
Yeah. This is the way I did it, without regard for necessarily the record, but taking into consideration who beat who, and talking about teams that played well. Like, I gave more points for teams that won than a team that lost and had a better record. I'm not saying they were over the other, but I'm just saying, how can you, like, Florida's a good example. Florida used to get rewarded for the way they finished the season. Without question. I've had them anywhere as high as 4 and 5, and I got them somewhere around 5 right now. Notre Dame, on the other hand, had a better record, but I can't put them up there in the top 5. I got Texas moving up. Give me your 3 through 10, please. Well, which I've changed 6 times. Oklahoma 3. I thought about Ohio State, and I moved them down. I moved them back up. I mean, that body of work is pretty darn impressive, even though they struggled a bit last night. I know you're not an Ohio State fan. I've got them in there just ahead of Florida. I got Florida 5. Notre Dame reluctantly 6. And I've got LSU up there. I thought they would, particularly the way they played when they were shorthanded in a tough situation, that impressed me. And you can laugh at UCF all you want to. They got some players, they made some stupid mistakes. But I give LSU a lot of credit for showing up,
Let me give both those teams credit. I mean, first off, UCF, I discounted their ability to compete. They surprised me with their speed at their skill positions. I thought those guys were better. Clearly, they can't hold up in the interior on the offensive and defensive lines like an SEC team would. But I give them a lot of credit for fighting back. I thought it was close to getting out of hand a couple times, but they were able to hang in there and answer. So give them credit. And to your point about LSU, being down as many guys as they were down heading into that game defensively, and then losing Delpit, losing they had 2 guys ejected for targeting.
Right.
It was amazing. They had a receiver playing in the defensive backfield. I mean, they found a way to win, and they very easily could have packed it in. So I give
Coach O a lot of credit for that. And by the way, I have Texas 8. I know they had a bunch of losses, but just based on last night, and part of that is based on how they progressed at the end of the year. They kind of came out of nowhere, and they got some players. As you know, they played really well last night. Georgia, I got down there a little lower than what I had originally, and I got Kentucky and UCF tied for 10th.
So hold on, you're telling me that Georgia's the 9th best team in the country?
Well, based on how they played last night.
But that's the thing. Are we going to judge like a bowl game?
I'm judging. What do you? Well, you tell me what you think.
I thought they should have been. I told you before. I thought they should have been in the top 4. I thought they should have been in the college football playoff.
But they did not get there, and they didn't prove to be worthy of it.
Yeah, they weren't worthy last night in a game that really didn't matter at all, right? I mean, what was
justifiable? I would have said so too, but I based on the eyeball test. What I saw, how they performed did matter to me.
Yeah, but but you watched enough of them to see Jake Fromm was incredibly inaccurate last night. That's something that he's not typically. Holloman dropped about 3 or 4 passes.
He did.
DeAndre Swift fumbled the ball multiple times, something he hadn't done all season long.
That's all part of being a good team.
Yeah, that's one timeout. I think they're their body of work in the other 13 games leads me to believe they're a much better team than what they were last night, and certainly better than. You think Florida's a better team than Georgia?
Right now, right now, I think they're as good as Georgia, and they're playing better right now. Based on how they're playing. I think they're a better team. Right? You want to talk about personnel?
You think Florida would have gone toe-to-toe with Alabama the way that Georgia did in their second-to-last game of the season?
Well, let's put it this way. Florida went toe-to-toe with Georgia. We talked about this. On a goal line stand, this is as good as I ever saw in Gainesville. And they walked away from that game, and it took all the gas out of them.
Yeah.
So I just say a team is capable of playing for a stretch, as good as anybody. So I give credit on the eyeball test, what I saw, and with that interception at the end. Yeah, I'm just basing it on what I think I see. without regard really to even their record, but how I saw they played, and I think Georgia played poorly. And,
yeah, they played poorly. They did. They played poorly, but they played really, really well in their second to last game, and so it's hard for me to forget about that. It's hard for me to forget about. It got them a berth into the Sugar Bowl, which they clearly, evidently, were not all that happy about being a part of. So I don't know.
So, so there you go. They got an Eastern Championship trophy.
To your point, though, and with Dan Mullen's point, he said, I don't think there's a lot of people that are lining up to play us right now. And I think you're right. I mean, I think he's peaking. The team is peaking at the right time. And that's the key, man. It's the key, whether we're talking about college basketball peaking before the tournament or peaking at the end of the season.
It's all part of the team. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and as Teddy says here, it should have mattered to them. And so that's what I'm basing it on. Look, I give credit where I love the fact that Felipe Franks, as much as he was maligned, and the guy who was criticized, Chauncey, was criticized during the middle of the year, about maybe not going all in, comes out and has a terrific performance and sets the tone, makes one of the best interceptions I've ever seen in a play. They were the MVPs. And that says something to me about they wanted to play. They showed up and they performed well. That is all about being a good team, right?
Yeah, I would say that the mental focus is one of the most important things, and we talked about it earlier. Is showing up ready to play, having your team look at. What I thought was interesting though. Saturday, it was almost as if Florida after the game. It was almost as if they had won the SEC championship, right? I think sometimes you got to be in that situation before you actually get a chance to really accomplish it. So, I mean, how many years is it going to be before they're standing in that same dome with the same confetti coming down, holding up the SEC championship trophy? I thought it was a great dry dress rehearsal for what's to come with this program.
Yes. You're right, my friend. Well, here we have gone 40 straight minutes without a commercial or break. You know why? Because it was so much fun when I got you on the show.
I enjoy it too, man. Thank you for having me, and look forward to catching up back with you guys again soon.
All right, my friend. You take care, and I appreciate
it. All right,
buddy. All right.
Have a good night.
All right. Chris Doering. Gosh, the time goes fast when I got Doering on. I got to get a couple commercials in. I wanted to tell you that France is having a tough time, not feeling well. Been down for about 10 days. And we might want to wish him well. And he's going to have to. He's been being bad for about 10 days. He's feeling really ill. So wanted her to give a word of prayer for him. He says he won't be writing for a while. So he asked I'd let you know about that, and we'll shout out to him in just a moment. Franz, you might want to give him a shout out. All right, and go on the Gator Nation Kingdom as well, and just post that Franz is under the weather. He has a doctor's appointment tomorrow. We'll let you know more tomorrow. And he asked for prayers. Okay? All right. We're going to do this. Let's see here now. Well, I need to get a commercial in someplace sometime on Daniel L. Hightower Wednesday, don't I? I think so. Yeah. So let me get with that, and then we'll get right over to T-Mac. T-Mac, hold on. I'm coming, buddy. Just running a little bit behind at the moment. So we'll go a little long tonight. And that's Terry Norvelle calling right there. Yeah, I was just saying, Terry Norvelle, that sorry, we got tied up and got long, and we haven't even got a commercial in the show yet. So anyway, how are you, Terry? I've not got your audio on for some reason or the other. And let's do this. Let me go ahead and do this while we're waiting, and I'll come back and get your audio fixed. So I'm not hearing you at all on audio.
Sounds good.
I got you now. Okay, now you're coming in. All right. Stand by 1 second. Apologize for being late. And just let me get this one commercial in here and just get something on the screen fixed so I'm working right. Terry Norvelle, College Sports Today. We had these difficulties before the show started where we had to deal with the same issue. So we're going to try to get this fixed. There's part of it. And there's T-Mac there. There he is right there, T-Mac. Stand by 1 second, buddy, will you?
Okay, buddy. You got it.
and our buddy Franz Beard under the weather tonight, and he's not feeling well. So just telling the folks about him. Meanwhile, Terry, get your two lists ready. We're coming right back to you to talk about the issue of the top 8 teams, and also the deconstruction of the season. So let's do this. Let me get you started. T-Mac, have you got your list out there?
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
All right, just give me a sec here. This is what happens when you don't have a producer, right? You know about this.
Absolutely.
Terry does college sports today, of course, and does a terrific job on the show, and that's why I really want to get your take tonight about that, and about the fact that that we got to rate these teams now, you know? Let's see if we can make this work.
Job-related accidents create incredible stress on your finances, your relationships, and most importantly, your sense of well-being. When the adjuster is not approving benefits you're entitled to by law, you need Dan Hightower to help you understand all of your legal options. Daniel L. Hightower has been fighting for accident victim justice in Ocala and statewide since 1976. Call Daniel L. Hightower today to better understand all your legal options. 352-629-7777. Job-related accidents create incredible stress. Hightower has been...
Okay. And now see if we can find T-Mac. There he is. Terry?
Hey, buddy.
Are you burnt out on football yet?
I think I can make one more game. We got one more game in us, don't we?
Yeah, I think so. I tell you, well, last night when I got to the end of the third quarter, I had to make an executive decision. And I said, you know what? I'm out. I've seen Georgia. They're not going to come back. They're not going to win. I'm going to go to bed and read about it tomorrow. And so I did.
Yeah, it was a little rough with, a lot of replays, a lot of, going to the booth and a lot of explaining. Boy, yesterday it was good football, buddy, and the games were spread out. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've seen a Saturday, a typical Saturday in college football, where there were that many targeting calls. Every time I turned around, there was a targeting call yesterday in every game,
especially.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. But it's a pretty good day. Yesterday's a pretty good day. Some pretty watchable football. I'm with you though, man. That 8:45 Georgia kickoff, that could have been an hour earlier. Ooh.
Man, that was rough. Yeah, T-Mac. And was there one particular moment, one game that stood out for you? And what was your
from yesterday? I'm gonna include the semifinal games. Mm-hmm. The one thing that really I wish we could do over would be have the Oklahoma-Alabama game start over and have Lincoln Riley win the coin toss and take the football. I thought he got roasted pretty good nationally for winning the coin toss and deferring, and I thought that was a strategic, big-time mistake by Riley. He needed to get Alabama in a chase mode, and I thought the game was over. Alabama punched him right in the face, was up 21-0. I thought it was a bad move by Lincoln Riley kicking the ball off.
Yeah, good point. You're right. All right, so we're talking a lot tonight about the season pass. And I just spent a little too long. In fact, I apologize for being so late talking with Doering. And he and I got a debate about what the final, what your top 10 right now would look like. And when you go all over the place with this, and I told him I didn't have Georgia ranked, in the top 5. And he says, how can you leave a team out like that? And so on and so forth. I said, well, I'm talking about the eyeball tests, about what I've seen. And he said, well, they played well at the end, but they just had an off day here. And, you had some fumbles, DeAndre Swift and, what have you. And I said, but that's part of it. How you perform is part of how you rank a team. And that's why I give Dan Mullen high marks for his team finishing the season strong, playing really well 4 games in a row, beating supposedly a better team with the number 1 defense in the country. And performing. It took a bit to get started in the third quarter, but when they did, they took them apart. So I don't want to be a homer here and say that they're but I put up as high as 5 or 6 in the final group. My group. How about you?
Now, you've got Florida that high? Did you say
Florida? Either 5 or 6?
Yeah.
Look at who's left.
Yeah, you and I are thinking right. Keep in mind, Florida came into the bowl game. Florida came in ranked 10th. You had numbers 5, 7, 8, and 9 get beat in front of them. I don't even consider. You also had Oklahoma, of course, and Notre Dame, but they weren't going to fall below Florida, so I don't consider them. But no, buddy, I'll go over my top 10 real quick, and obviously 1 and 2 are interchangeable. Alabama, Clemson, Alabama. However that game plays out.
So you really got 8 of the top 10, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm with you. You said it earlier. Here, this is my eyeball test. The season's basically over. This is how I would hand out the 1 through 10, trophies. Alabama, Clemson, or Clemson, Alabama, depending on how that game goes. 1 and 2. I think Oklahoma's the third best team in the country. I'm very impressed with Ohio State. I had them 4. Notre Dame 5. I don't punish Notre Dame as much as some people. I know they got bombed 30-3. I just think a lot of people playing Clemson would have gotten bombed 30-3. So I've got Notre Dame 5. I've got Florida 6, and I truly think Florida should finish right there at 6. I've got LSU 7, and I've dropped Georgia to 8. Keep in mind, Georgia, they lost their final 2 games. They're on a 2-game. They went into their final 2 games. They were ranked 4th in the country when they went to Atlanta. They lost that game, and they only dropped 1 spot, okay? Then you can't lose your next game out, make it 2 in a row, and not fall another 2 or 3 spots. So I've got Georgia 8, Washington State 9, and I bumped Texas up 5 spots. They came in last night 15. I thought they had such an impressive win. I've got Texas sitting there at 10, and if I had to go any deeper, I'd probably have Kentucky 11.
I had Kentucky 10, and by the way, I have Texas all the way up to 8.
Yeah,
all the way up to 8, just based on how good they look and how they dominated Georgia.
Yeah,
who are you going to put up there? I mean, I don't know. There aren't that many impressive teams. I give UCF some credit. I gave them a tie for 10th because I think they held together without Mackenzie Milton. Had a great run, even though, and they were very competitive and they gave LSU all they wanted. But really, the team you got to give a lot of props to is LSU, playing with almost nobody left on the field, either injured or kicked out of the game. And somehow they hung in there.
They really did.
And I got to give them a lot of. And I'm not a big fan of LSU, so I'm just not prepared to give Georgia a lot of love, because they're supposed to win there, right? I got Ohio State up there. I know a lot of people don't like to,
I do too. I've got them 4th. I think they've got a great team.
I got them.
For them to, for everything to have happened around that program that didn't involve those football players at Ohio State, and I know they had one hiccup. They had an ugly hiccup one time at Purdue, but that was impressive what that team was able to keep together at Ohio State with what all was going around that program.
I agree. So we're pretty similar in that regard.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about deconstructing this season. Let's talk about what happened. I'd like to always start with Dan Mullen getting off the plane in Gainesville, with a smile on his face and being happy to be there, and the attitude that pervaded around the program after that. I start with that. That made a lot of difference, in my opinion.
Yeah, boy, you know my feeling on college football. It is a head coach's league. I mean, you've got to have the right head coach. The head coach is everything in college football. He's the player personnel guy. He's the disciplinarian. He's the head coach. He's the everything. And if you don't have the right guy, Florida went out. Think what they got, man. They got Dan Mullen, who is not only 46, he's a young 46. You don't get many guys that at the age of 46 have 10 years. Basically, they brought him in. He had 9 years of Power 5 coaching experience at the head coaching level. A perfect fit. What he's done in 13, 14 months and his staff is nothing short of amazing. Nothing short of amazing.
Yeah. So you got that going on, and you don't know what you're still think back about what we're talking about. Who's going to be the starting quarterback? Who's it going to be? Will the offense be any good? Marco Wilson gets hurt. And there was some concern after the first 2 games. Not a real good performance against Colorado State. And then off we go. And then there were other issues as the offensive line looked like it was going to be sucking wind. and things are at that point in time. You're wondering, is this going to be? We were talking about Vegas has them as 7.5 wins. The question, well, would you take 8? And I didn't until about 4 games in. I thought, okay, I'm going to go 8 now. And then suddenly it occurred to me that after the season was going, this is a team that's going to win 8 and maybe more games. And then it became obvious they had a chance to win 10. So anyway, there were lots of big moments. Nick Savage's role was huge, big part of the success. I don't know. What are some of the other ones that you? I've got a whole list. I read mine over several times. What are the key points for you that made this season?
I'll tell you, one happened early in the year, and I don't know if anybody or a lot of people realize how close this team kind of got to spitting the hook out a little bit, the buy-in. I was leaving the Kentucky game way back on September 8th, and I may have told you this. We were at the game. I was with 3 or 4 buddies, and we got loaded up after the game. Disappointing loss to Kentucky early in the year. We loaded up in the SUV, and, of course, we're driving out listening to the postgame. We're listening to Mick and Lee McGriff, and Coach Mullen is being interviewed. And, buddy, he's talking on the radio without telling his team he's talking to the team. He's talking to his team. Mm-hmm. And he's basically saying, well, Mick and Lee, we had a chance at the end. We couldn't make the play. He said, but even if we made the play and won tonight and had a miracle play,
I remember the comment.
He said, man, you know what? We still got a lot of work to do. He was talking to his team, and at that point you could tell that team hadn't totally bought in to the Dan Mullen way. Mm-hmm. And we were driving home, man, and things weren't looking good. Remember, that's 3.5 months ago. Georgia, back then, they couldn't wake up in the morning without 5 great things happening. So the number one rival, in Athens, looks like they're the biggest, baddest thing this side of Alabama. And, boy, that was impressive. They had to keep that team together. That was the first thing, was they finally got buy-in, and that's hard to do.
Yeah, it is. So that was definitely a big point. But when did you know this was going to be an above-average team?
Probably the Mississippi State game. That was a snake pit they went into, and that was an emotional Dan Mullen going back home, and those crazies in Starkville, they had Dan Mullen circled, buddy. They wanted them some Dan Mullen when Florida rolled in there.
I had that as a loss written down already.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Me too. Hell, I had this team. I had to talk myself into saying 8 wins. I was almost going to say 7 wins. But you know what? I then saw the way that team responded, and that was a gut-wrenching 13-6. Remember that game? Points were hard to come by. Mm-hmm. Mississippi State's got all those NFL players on defense. Mm-hmm. You could see they were trying to talk the team into buying in after Kentucky, but you could see that team in their face that at that game at Mississippi State when they pulled that was a brass knuckles fist fight right there now. Mm-hmm. And they pulled that thing out. I go, wait a minute now. They might have something cooking here. This team looks like they're in, and they like this coach and this coaching staff. I thought right then it might be something fun right there.
Yeah, for sure. High point for you this season?
Well, obviously, just wrapping up, you go get a 10-win season was incredible, snapping the FSU streak. I tell you, this may sound a little crazy, but one of the high points, and I think this got Gator Nation really jacked up, was no, they didn't beat Georgia. But that Florida roster probably will look back in a couple of years and say, they weren't supposed to even be ahead of Georgia 14-13 in the third quarter. Mm-hmm. And I think I said on the Monday on my show, I said, man, this was a strange Florida-Georgia game. Both programs came out of the Florida-Georgia game feeling good. Georgia got the win, and Florida said, hey, man, you might have got the win, but what's going to happen when this talent starts equaling out? I think in the loss to Georgia, Gator Nation went, man, we're on the right track. I think that was, even though it was a loss, it was a high moment for Gator Nation.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, it's been a really, really good year, and I just want to mention that I mentioned this when I came on the air, that it's like Mullen said, Nick Savage came in after the first workout, the last workout, and said, 2018, ... you fill in the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And they did fill it in, and now looking back at it and looking at what happened today with 2 more gamers coming out early. Now, things are changing before our eyes. We've got 2 or 3 people like Jordan Scarlett that we didn't really expect. And that was a big, that's the big change. You don't know what's going to happen. You have no guarantees of who you're going to have. Marco Wilson getting hurt last year. Yeah. Felipe was going to be benched every week, and so the way it turned out. So anyway, T-Mac, I appreciate it, buddy. It was good talking with you. I enjoyed it very much. Tell folks how they can hear your show.
Well, thank you, buddy. Anytime I'll be happy to come on anytime on this show. If you want to follow what we do, go to your Facebook page and like our page called College Sports Today. Just like the page, and it's just that easy. College Sports Today, and we'll send you out posts and things like that, and just talk some ball. Obviously, we focus with the college game because we love it so much.
Yeah, and by the way, I want to get your comments because you do a better job of following the state of Florida than I do. Give me your take on Mark Richt, and were you surprised? And what about that change? Talk about things changing in a hurry. Mark Richt situation.
Well, obviously, Mark Richt didn't retire as much as he got talked out of that job after that ugly bowl game. And you could kind of tell that it wasn't all Mark Richt doing it at the spur of the moment, because if Mark Richt had an inkling a couple weeks ago he was going to step aside, he would have gone to some of his superiors and Manny Diaz. Manny Diaz signed a contract 18 days ago, and he had a $4 million buyout. Mark Richt didn't know he was leaving because he would have saved Miami $4 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Cristobal has a $9 million buyout. That's why they didn't go there. I was really stunned. I think Miami is a total rebuild. Yeah. It's an absolute mess. He's cleaned out the offensive staff. I think it's a risky hire. Manny Diaz has never been a head coach. And, that could work at occasion. Jimbo was never a head coach till he got his job. Lincoln Riley. But,
Dabo.
Dabo. But mostly the guys that do that, they flop. The ones that haven't had a head. See, Muschamp, Zook, guys like that. I think it's a risky move in Miami. But, they were pushed against it. The time frame now with National Signing Day 1 and National Signing Day 2 and all the time, the time period now is really tight when a school has to fire a coach.
Yeah. A listener of ours, a former listener, David DeGate, says, it's awesome to have you both on together.
Nice.
I miss those days. You said it was so much fun. It was a lot of fun.
It was.
All right, my man. Thank you, T-Mac. We'll talk to you again soon. Maybe we'll chat some more next week or something. All right?
Anytime, buddy Martin. Thanks, sir.
All right, pal.
See you,
Thank you. Terry Norvelle, College Sports Today. All right. I've got to get a little business in here tonight because I haven't done any, and I do need to pay a couple of bills. So if I can get back to the commercials here just for a second and play a couple, we got to get our sponsors going because sponsorships are hard to come by, and we got to make sure that we take care of the ones we got. So we'll be talking about that soon. By the way, let's see if I can tell you about a really good one of our best. RedStar, you see it on the screen. RedStar Medical Research. These people are great people. They're a football family. Joey Sorrentino played at Florida. Mary Brantley, of course, involved, and Joe Sorrentino, big fan of the community. And RedStar is big in our community because they also sponsor the Scott Brantley Award, which is coming up soon, by the way. We're going to be naming that player in the next 6 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. And we'll be talking about that. It's an honor for a young man, one of the 4 we got narrowed down to, who will be, I think they're right here. Kimo Clark was from Vanguard. Brian Dillard from Lake Weir, 6A Player of the Year. He's right here. Brian Maurer, who leaves, I think, on the 5th for Tennessee. He's a Tennessee commit, quarterback, record-setting quarterback. The Star Banner's Offensive Player of the Year. And a young man you'll see in a Gator uniform soon, and you folks in Buchholz and the games will know about him. Terrific young man, Trent Whittemore. These are the 4 finalists. One of them are going to be named soon. by our committee as the Scott Brantley Trophy Award winner, the first one, and we'll have a big event to celebrate that. So again, our friends at Rinstar make this possible. They also are a first-class facility for medical research. They do research for diseases that affect our community, things like Alzheimer's and et cetera, et cetera. And they're doing studies right now for psoriasis, and that information and data goes right to the biomedical companies and goes toward finding a treatment for people suffering with this. In fact, right now there's one going on with the psoriasis is a real pain, it's called. If you would like to know more about it, you can call 352-629-5800. You can become a volunteer for this if you'd like to and learn more about it. So they have a proven reputation as a high-quality, patient-centered clinical research facility, and they do great work there. So they're having a free memory evaluation. If you're concerned about or experiencing memory decline, you're eligible to receive a free memory evaluation there. You can go online and contact them at www.rinstar.net, or you can call them at 352-629-5800 in Ocala and know more about some of the research that's going on. Rinstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Also want to tell you about my friends over at Grinders. They're some of my favorite people and also my favorite clothes. I could even look halfway decent in some of their jackets over there, as you see, if I do say so myself. One I purchased recently at Grinders. They've got suits and sport coats, ties, shoes, shirts, and it's all nice-looking quality stuff, and they don't force it down. You don't go in there and get pressured to buy things. You go in there and say, I'm looking for some long-sleeve shirts. Here's my selection. Here's the brand. What can I tell you about? And then when you pick it out, they size it for you, they tailor it for you, make it look sharp, and they give you really personalized care. I love it. Go by and see them on 405 East Silver Spring Boulevard in Ocala, or call them at 352-629-3195, or go on grindersofocala.com and see what they got. I would suggest you go see them because they're good people. You're going to enjoy their store. You also are going to enjoy talking to the people down there. Grinders for Men. It's been an Ocala tradition since 1962. And speaking of traditions and food, oh my goodness, this is a killer. This always gets me. This is one of my all-time favorite restaurants, Mark's Prime, downtown Ocala also. Mark's Prime Steakhouse and Seafood. There's just two dishes. I wish I wouldn't put those up at nighttime because they look so good. That chunk of beef on the left, I could eat right now. And, of course, the shrimp scampi on the right. Those are just two samples. They have beautiful fresh vegetables. They have a great wine cellar, desserts to die for. And if you want to have an elegant evening out on a memorable place and a real experience, that's what they aim for. They want you to have a really good experience and you have dinner at Mark's. You can do it right there. And there are two locations to serve you, in Ocala and one in Gainesville. And the one thing about it, if you go down there on a night when the weather's not good, and you say, oh my gosh, I don't have to get wet. Well, guess what? They do have a valet service. You pull right up to the door, and they will get you to your car. And two locations to serve you: Gainesville 352-336-0077, Ocala 352-402-0097. Again, the complimentary valet parking, or go online at marksprimesteakhouse.com. Grinders, as mentioned before, is a tradition. Mark's is getting a big tradition too for fine dining and an experience you won't want to forget. Mark's Prime Steakhouse. All right, we'll say we'll get a little word here from our friends at All Florida Sportswear, and we'll call it a night. KK, we support, of course, them as well. And just a comment from Dave here about Davey about the good food. And you're starting to drop out on me, and I understand why. We'll got a lot of recruiting to talk about, which we'll do soon. And we'll share more of that with you. Well, thank you for listening tonight. And thank you for your support of the show. We're going to need you folks in the coming months, and we're going to tell you how. We want to try to make this thing go and last and grow. But it's going to take some help from all of us to make it happen, all right? Meanwhile, I'll say have a good evening. Have a good rest of the holiday week that you got. And we will talk to you tomorrow night at the same time right here